The contract. The ink was still wet on the marriage certificate when Isabella Rose became Isabella Blackwood. The City Hall ceremony had lasted 12 minutes. Cold fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The judge's monotone voice made their vows sound like a business transaction, which was exactly what it was. Damen Blackwood stood beside her in a charcoal suit that cost more than her annual rent, his jaw tight, his storm-gray eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the sterile walls. When the judge pronounced them married, his kiss was brief and professional, his lips barely grazing hers. It felt like shaking hands with a stranger. The camera flash from the society photographer made Isabella blink. That single image would sell the lie to the world. Billionaire tech CEO finds love with mysterious woman. No one would know the truth. No one could ever know. "We should go," Damen said, his voice low and detached. "The board expects us at dinner tonight." Isabella's stomach twisted. She clutched her small purse tighter, thinking of Tommy back at their tiny apartment with Mrs. Garcia. Her 7-year-old son had no idea his mother had just married a man she barely knew to save his life. The Blackwood mansion loomed before them like a fortress of glass and stone. Isabella had cleaned every room over the past 6 weeks, but stepping through the front door as the lady of the house felt surreal, like wearing someone else's skin. "Your bedroom is upstairs, second door on the left," Damen said, already loosening his tie. "Mrs. Patterson, put your things away." My things consisted of 1 suitcase and a garbage bag of Tommy's clothes. Isabella's throat tightened. "When can Tommy move in?" she asked. Damen paused at the base of the marble staircase. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Then the mask returned. "After the board approves the marriage. 2 weeks, maybe 3. We can't risk any irregularities. He's 7 years old and has a failing heart. Every day matters. And if the board discovers this arrangement is fake, your son gets nothing." His words were sharp as broken glass. "We follow the plan." Isabella's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run back to her old life where at least the poverty was honest, but Tommy's pale face flashed in her mind. His small hand clutching hers in the hospital, his voice asking if he was going to die. "Fine," she whispered. Damen climbed 3 steps, then stopped without turning around. "There's a gala tomorrow night. Wear something appropriate. The world needs to believe I'm madly in love with you." "And how exactly do we fake that?" He finally looked back at her, and Isabella saw something dark and broken swimming in his eyes. "The same way we fake everything else. We pretend." That night, Isabella lay in a bed so large she felt lost in it. The silk sheets were cold against her skin. Through the walls, she could hear Damen moving in the master suite, pacing like a caged animal. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Garcia. "Tommy keeps asking when you're coming home." What should I tell him? Isabella's vision blurred. She typed back, "Soon. Tell him Mommy loves him." She was drifting into restless sleep when she heard it. A sound from down the hall. Crying. No, not crying. A raw, broken sound like someone trying to hold in a scream. Isabella's feet touched the cold marble floor before she made a conscious decision to move. She found herself outside Damen's door, her hand hovering over the handle. "Don't!" His voice came from inside, rough and wrecked. "Just go back to your room." I said go back. But Isabella pushed the door open anyway. Damen stood at the window, his back to her, shoulders rigid. On the nightstand, a photograph lay face down. Even from across the room, Isabella could see his reflection in the dark glass. A man barely holding himself together. "Tomorrow would have been her birthday," he said quietly. "My fiancé. 5 years since the accident." Isabella's breath caught. "Damen, I'm sorry." "Don't." He turned, and the anguish in his face was so raw it hurt to witness. "Don't apologize. Don't comfort me. This is a contract, Isabella. Nothing more." "Then why are you crying?" "Because I'm using you the same way my grandfather used his fortune to control me. Because your son is dying and I'm exploiting that desperation. Because I'm exactly the monster everyone thinks I am." The words hung between them like smoke from a fire neither knew how to extinguish. Isabella took a step forward. "You're not a monster. You're just broken. And you're naive if you think broken things can be fixed." "Maybe." She met his eyes. "Or maybe we're both just trying to survive." For a moment, something shifted in the air between them. Something dangerous and electric. Then Damen's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened into ice. "It's Bradley," he said. "My cousin." Isabella watched as he answered, his business mask sliding back into place with practiced ease. But she'd seen behind it now. She'd seen the man beneath the armor. As she returned to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just crossed a line neither of them had meant to draw. Her phone buzzed again, this time an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. The fake marriage, the sick kid, everything. And if you don't give me $500,000 in 2 weeks, I'm going to the press." Isabella's blood turned to ice. The text continued. "Sweet dreams, Mrs. Blackwood." Dangerous territory. Isabella's hands shook as she stared at the threatening text. The phone felt like a bomb counting down in her palm. She should tell Damen. She should show him right now. But if he knew someone was threatening to expose them, would he end the arrangement? Send her back to watching Tommy die slowly in a hospital bed she couldn't afford. She deleted the message and turned off her phone. The gala was a nightmare dressed in champagne and diamonds. Isabella wore a midnight blue gown that Mrs. Patterson had somehow procured, the fabric clinging to her curves in ways that made her feel exposed. Her hair was swept up, her makeup professionally done by a woman who'd arrived at 7 that morning. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Patterson had said with genuine warmth. But beautiful felt like another costume in a play Isabella didn't know how to perform. Damen waited at the bottom of the stairs in a black tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, his expression unreadable. When he saw her, something flickered across his face too quickly to name. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. "To lie to hundreds of people?" "Not really." His mouth almost curved into a smile. "Welcome to my world." The gallery was transformed into a wonderland of soft lights and classical music. San Francisco's elite moved through the space like sharks in expensive clothing, their eyes hungry for gossip, their smiles sharp as knives. "Remember," Damen murmured as they entered, his hand settling on the small of her back. "We're desperately in love. I can't keep my hands off you. You're the reason I smile now." The warmth of his palm seared through the thin fabric of her dress. That's quite a story. All good lies are. They moved through, the crowd like dancers who'd rehearsed for years. Damen introduced her to board members and investors, his thumb drawing absent circles on her back that made her breath hitch. He laughed at her jokes, his eyes never leaving hers. He brought her champagne and whispered in her ear about the ridiculous hats some guests wore, and somewhere between the 2nd and 3rd hour, Isabella forgot they were acting. "You're good at this," she said when they finally escaped to a quiet balcony overlooking the city lights. At lying, Damen leaned against the railing, the cool night air ruffling his hair. "I've had practice at making people believe in something that isn't real." He was quiet for a long moment. Below them, the city glittered like scattered stars. "Sometimes I wonder if anything is real," he said softly, "or if we're all just playing parts until we die." Isabella stepped closer, close enough to catch the scent of his cologne mixed with night air. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Maybe I'm a sad person. Or maybe you're scared." His eyes snapped to hers, sharp and dangerous. Of what? Of feeling something again. The words hung between them like a dare. Damen's jaw tightened, and for a moment Isabella thought he might walk away. Instead, he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "You don't know anything about me," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I know you paid for Mrs. Patterson's husband's cancer treatment. I know you work 16-hour days to keep your company running. I know you cry on the anniversary of losing someone you loved. Stop. I know you're not the cold bastard you pretend to be, Isabella." Her name on his lips sounded like a warning and a plea. She didn't step back. "I'm right, aren't I?" His hand moved from her cheek to the back of her neck, his touch sending electricity down her spine. They were too close now, crossing lines drawn in the contract they'd signed. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably." We agreed. No complications. I know. But neither of them moved away. The city hummed below them, indifferent to two people standing on the edge of something that could destroy them both. Damen's phone buzzed. He pulled back, the spell broken, and checked the screen. His expression darkened. What is it? Bradley. He's here. At the gala. Isabella's stomach dropped. Your cousin? The one who wants to take everything from me. Damen's voice was cold steel. Stay close. He's dangerous. They returned to the party, but the warmth between them had frozen over. Isabella spotted Bradley immediately. Tall, blonde, handsome in a way that felt manufactured. He held a glass of scotch and wore a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Cousin, Bradley said, approaching with the swagger of someone who owned the room. I heard the good news? Married. How wonderfully sudden. Damen's hand tightened on Isabella's waist. Bradley, this is my wife, Isabella. Bradley's gaze raked over her like she was livestock at auction. Charming. Tell me, Isabella, how exactly did you meet my very eligible cousin? The question was a trap wrapped in silk. I was working in his home, Isabella said, lifting her chin. Sometimes the best things happen when you're not looking for them. How poetic. Bradley took a sip of his drink. And how convenient. Right when Damen needed a wife to secure his inheritance. The threat in his words was unmistakable. Damen stepped forward, his voice dropping to a lethal quiet. Careful, Bradley, or what? You'll threaten me at your own gala? Bradley laughed. I'm just making conversation with my new cousin-in-law. No harm in that. He leaned closer to Isabella, his breath reeking of expensive alcohol. Tell me, darling, what's it like being bought? Does he pay well? Damen moved so fast Isabella barely saw it. One moment Bradley was smirking. The next Damen had him by the collar, his fist cocked back. Damen, don't, Isabella said, grabbing his arm. He's not worth it. Around them guests had fallen silent, phones out, cameras recording. Damen released Bradley with a shove that sent him stumbling back. Get out. Bradley straightened his jacket, his smile never wavering. Gladly, but we both know this charade won't last. And when it falls apart, cousin, I'll be there to pick up the pieces of your empire. He walked away, and the crowd slowly resumed their conversations, buzzing with the scandal they just witnessed. Isabella felt sick. The cameras. Everyone saw good, Damen said, his voice rough. Let them see I'll protect you. Let them see this marriage is real. But his hands were shaking. They left the gala early. The drive home silent and tense. Isabella's phone buzzed in her purse. Another unknown number. Nice performance tonight. But your cousin-in-law is right. This won't last. Pay up or I tell everyone the truth. You have 10 days, Isabella. Damen's voice cut through her panic. You're pale. What's wrong? She looked at him. This man who'd just nearly fought his own cousin to protect a lie. This man whose touch made her forget why they were pretending in the first place. Nothing, she lied. I'm just tired. But as they pulled into the mansion's driveway, Isabella knew the truth. They were both standing on quicksand, and every step forward was pulling them deeper into something neither could escape. Damen walked her to her bedroom door, his hand lingering on her elbow. Thank you, he said quietly, for tonight, for standing beside me. That's what wives do, isn't it? Even fake ones. Something painful flickered in his eyes. Right, fake. He turned to leave, then stopped. Isabella, yes? On the balcony earlier. He shook his head. Never mind, good night. As his footsteps faded down the hall, Isabella leaned against her closed door and tried to remember why falling for him would be the worst mistake of her life. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't the blackmailer. It was the hospital. Tommy's condition has worsened. He's being moved to ICU. You need to come now. The betrayal, the hospital smelled like antiseptic and broken dreams. Isabella ran through the sterile corridors, her heels clicking against linoleum, her heart hammering against her ribs. The gala gown felt obscene here, among the fluorescent lights and the quiet desperation of waiting families. She found Tommy in ICU, so small in the hospital bed he looked like a doll. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that beeped steadily, each sound a reminder that his heart was failing. Mommy, he whispered when he saw her, and Isabella's composure shattered. She took his hand, careful of the IV, and tried to smile through her tears. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I don't feel good. I know, sweetheart. But you're going to get better. I promise it was a lie. Without the surgery, Tommy had weeks, maybe days. The doctor found her 2 hours later, after Tommy had drifted into a medicated sleep. Dr. Chen was young, with kind eyes that had seen too much death. His heart is deteriorating faster than we anticipated, she said gently. We need to move up the surgery, ideally within the next 10 days. Isabella's world tilted. But you said we had months to prepare. His body is giving up, Mrs. Blackwood. The surgery is his only chance. 10 days. The same deadline the blackmailer had given her. Isabella sat in the hard plastic chair beside Tommy's bed and realized she was trapped in a nightmare with no exit. She needed Damen's money for the surgery, but someone wanted $500,000 to keep quiet about their arrangement. If she paid the blackmailer, Tommy might not get the surgery in time. If she didn't pay, the marriage would be exposed and she'd lose everything. Her phone rang. Damen, where are you? His voice was rough with worry. You disappeared. The hospital. Tommy's worse. Silence. Then, I'm coming. Damen, you don't have to. I'm coming. He arrived 30 minutes later, still in his tuxedo, looking wildly out of place among the beeping machines and exhausted nurses. But when he saw Tommy, something in his face cracked open. He's so small, Damen said quietly. Isabella wiped her eyes. He's the bravest person I know. They stood side by side, watching Tommy sleep. The machines hummed their mechanical lullaby. The world outside continued spinning, indifferent to one small boy's fight for life. I lost someone once, Damen said, his voice barely above a whisper. My fiancé. We were supposed to get married in the spring. She died in winter. Isabella waited, giving him space to breathe around the pain. I thought if I never cared about anyone again, I'd never hurt like that again. He looked at Tommy, then at Isabella. But seeing him like this, seeing you break apart over him, I realize I was wrong. Pain isn't the problem. It's proof you loved someone enough to let them matter. Isabella's throat tightened. Damn the surgery. Whatever it costs, whatever needs to happen, we do it. Tomorrow I'll call the hospital and authorize everything. That wasn't part of our deal. Screw the deal. His eyes were fierce. Your son doesn't die because of a contract I forced you to sign. For the first time since entering the hospital, Isabella felt like she could breathe. Thank you. He reached out and took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. You don't have to thank me for being human. They stayed like that, connected by touch and shared worry, until dawn painted the windows gold. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. Damen had to present his marriage as stable and genuine, proof that he'd fulfilled his grandfather's conditions. Isabella stood in the hallway outside the boardroom, smoothing down her conservative dress, trying to look like a woman in love rather than a woman drowning. Through the glass doors, she could see Damen addressing the 12 board members, his presence commanding the room. He looked every inch the CEO, powerful, confident, untouchable. Then Bradley walked past her into the boardroom, late and unbothered. He caught Isabella's eye and winked. Her stomach dropped. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When Damen finally emerged, his expression was unreadable. They approved everything, he said. The marriage, the inheritance, all of it. Relief flooded through Isabella. That's wonderful. They want to meet you, formally. Tomorrow night, a dinner at the estate. Of course. Whatever you need, but something was wrong. Damen wouldn't meet her eyes. What is it? She asked. Nothing. I'm just tired. He was lying. Isabella knew lies intimately now. She'd been living one for weeks. That night, unable to sleep, Isabella wandered the mansion's halls. She found herself outside Damen's study, the door slightly ajar, voices drifting out. You're playing with fire, cousin. Bradley's voice, smug and sharp. Get out of my house. Not until we talk about your little arrangement. See, I did some digging. Your wife, she's drowning in medical debt. Her kid's dying, and suddenly she marries you right when you need a wife to keep your inheritance. Quite the coincidence. Isabella's blood froze. You don't know what you're talking about, Damen said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? I had someone look into her. The timing is suspicious, Damen. And the board, well, they might be interested to know your marriage is potentially a fraud. You have no proof. Maybe not yet, but I'm patient. And when I do find proof, when this whole charade falls apart, the company will be mine. Unless what? Unless you make it worth my while to keep quiet. Say $5 million, a small price to pay for your empire. Isabella's hands clenched. So Bradley was the blackmailer, or working with them. That's extortion, Damen said coldly. That's business. You have until Friday. Pay me, or I start asking very uncomfortable questions to very important people. Footsteps approached the door. Isabella barely managed to hide in a nearby alcove as Bradley strode out, whistling cheerfully. She should tell Damen what she'd heard. They could face this together. But then her phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. Your husband is meeting with someone tomorrow. A woman, his dead fiancé's sister. Maybe he's not as committed to your little arrangement as you think. The message included a photo. Damen in a coffee shop, his hand covering a woman's hand across a table, his expression tender in a way Isabella had never seen directed at her. The betrayal cut deeper than she expected. They were just pretending. It shouldn't hurt, but it did. The next morning, Isabella confronted him. Who is she? She demanded, throwing her phone on his desk. Damen looked at the photo and his face went carefully blank. That's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you're holding hands with another woman while I'm supposed to be playing devoted wife. Sarah was my fiancé's sister. She's struggling. I was comforting her. By lying to me about where you were, I don't owe you explanations about my personal life. This is a contract, remember? The words hit like a slap. Isabella felt something crack inside her chest. Right, she said quietly. A contract. Nothing more. She turned to leave, but Damen caught her wrist. Isabella, wait, that came out wrong, did it? Or did it come out exactly how you meant it? She pulled free and walked away, leaving Damen standing in his office, looking more lost than she'd ever seen him. That afternoon, the unknown number sent another message. Pay $500,000 by Friday, or the proof goes to the board. Bradley isn't the only one who knows your secret. Isabella stared at the message, then at her bank account with its pathetic balance, then at the framed photo of Tommy on her nightstand. She had 3 days to find $500,000 or watch everything collapse. And Damen, the man who'd promised to save her son, was keeping secrets with a ghost from his past. The dinner with the board was a disaster waiting to happen. Isabella plastered on a smile and played her part perfectly. She laughed at jokes, answered questions about their courtship, let Damen's hand rest possessively on her knee beneath the table. But inside, she was screaming. After dinner, as guests mingled with brandy and cigars, Bradley cornered her on the terrace. You look stressed, dear cousin, he said with mock concern. Marriage troubles already? Stay away from me. Or what? You'll tell Damen I'm blackmailing you both? He laughed. Please do. I'd love to watch you explain why you didn't tell him from the start. What would he think, learning his devoted wife has been lying to him? Isabella's vision swam. Why are you doing this? Because I can. Because Damen took everything that should have been mine. And now I'm going to take everything from him, including whatever pathetic feelings he might have developed for you. He doesn't have feelings for me, doesn't he? Bradley leaned closer. I've seen how he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. Like you might actually matter. It's almost sweet. Too bad it's about to end in flames. He walked away, leaving Isabella shaking on the terrace. Inside, through the glass doors, she could see Damen laughing with board members, playing the role of happily married CEO. He looked so far away, so untouchable. Her phone buzzed one final time that night. Friday, midnight. Wire the money or I send everything to the press. Choose wisely. Isabella closed her eyes and made a choice that would change everything. She would steal the money from Damen's accounts. She would pay the blackmailer. She would save Tommy, and she would lose the only man who'd ever made her feel like she mattered. Everything falls apart. Isabella's fingers trembled over the keyboard. Damon's home office was dark except for the glow of his computer screen. 3 a.m. The house was silent. Everyone asleep except her and her guilty conscience. She'd found his financial passwords in a locked drawer. Not because she was clever, but because he'd been careless, distracted by board meetings and Bradley's threats. The wire transfer screen glowed before her, waiting for confirmation. $500,000. $500,000 she had no right to take. But Tommy's face swam in her vision. Her baby, fighting for every breath. The surgery was scheduled for Monday, 4 days away, and the blackmailer's deadline was tomorrow night. She clicked confirm. The money vanished from Damen's account like smoke, gone to an offshore number that would disappear into the dark web. Untraceable. Final. Isabella closed the computer and ran to the bathroom, where she vomited until there was nothing left inside her but shame. Morning came too quickly. Isabella dressed mechanically, her hands still shaking. She'd barely slept. Every sound in the house felt like an accusation. She found Damen in the breakfast room, reading the financial news on his tablet, coffee steaming beside him. He looked tired, beautiful, completely unaware his wife had just betrayed him. "Morning," he said without looking up. "The board wants another meeting next week. Something about Q4 projections." "Okay." He finally glanced at her. "You look terrible. Are you sick? Didn't sleep well, Tommy?" The mention of her son made guilt twist like a knife in her chest. "Yeah, Tommy." Damen stood and crossed to her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "The surgery is Monday. He's going to be fine. Dr. Chen is the best in her field, and I've already authorized everything." Isabella wanted to cry. Here was this man, this complicated, damaged man, trying to save her son, and she'd just stolen from him. "You're too good to me," she whispered. "No one's ever accused me of being good." But his thumb traced circles on her shoulder, tender and unconscious. "Isabella, I need to tell you something. About Sarah." Isabella's stomach dropped. "You don't owe me explanations." "Yes, I do. She's been calling me because she's struggling financially. Her husband left her. She has 2 kids, and I've been helping her because I feel guilty." "Guilty for what?" "For being alive when her sister isn't." His voice cracked. "Emily died in that car accident because she was coming to meet me. I was late for dinner. She was rushing. And then she was just gone." Isabella's heart broke for him. "Damen, that wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" "Sarah thinks it was. She said I killed her sister with my carelessness. And maybe she's right. She's wrong. Accidents are called accidents because no one means for them to happen." He looked at her then. Really looked. And Isabella saw the raw vulnerability in his eyes. "Why do you always see the best in me when I've given you no reason to?" "Maybe because I'm seeing the real you, the one you hide from everyone else." They stood there, inches apart, the morning light spilling through windows, casting everything in gold. Damen reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering. "I'm starting to forget this is fake," he said quietly. Isabella's breath caught. "So am I. That's dangerous, I know," but neither of them moved away. The space between them hummed with possibility, with all the words they weren't saying. Then Damen's phone rang. He answered, his expression shifting from soft to stone in seconds. "What?" he said sharply. "When?" "I'll be right there." He hung up and turned to Isabella, his eyes wild. "Someone accessed my private accounts last night. $500,000 is missing." The world stopped spinning. "The bank is investigating," Damen continued, already moving toward his office. "They think it was an inside job. Someone with access to this house." Isabella couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch as the man she'd come to care for discovered her betrayal in real time. She followed him to the office, her legs moving on autopilot. Damen pulled up his banking records, his face going paler with each click. "The transfer was made from my personal computer. At 3:47 this morning." He looked at her. "I was asleep. Were you awake?" This was it. The moment everything fell apart. "Damen, I can explain." His expression went very still. "Explain what?" "I was being blackmailed. Someone threatened to expose our arrangement to the board. They wanted $500,000, or they'd tell everyone the marriage was fake." "And you paid them? With my money?" "I didn't know what else to do." "The surgery is Monday. If the board found out, you'd cancel everything. Tommy would die." Damen stood slowly, his hands braced on the desk. "So you stole from me." "I was going to tell you. I swear I was going to—" "When? After you'd already wired my money to a blackmailer?" After you decided I couldn't be trusted with the truth? His voice was cold as winter. Isabella's eyes burned with tears. I'm sorry. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. You trusted a criminal over your own husband. You're not my real husband. The words exploded from Isabella before she could stop them. This is a contract. A business deal. You said so yourself. Damen flinched like she'd slapped him. Right, a contract. How could I forget? Damen, please, get out. What? Get out of my office. Out of my house. This arrangement is over. Isabella's world tilted. But Tommy's surgery, I'll still pay for it. I'm not a monster, despite what you apparently think. His voice was ice and broken glass. But we're done. The marriage, the contract, all of it. You'll have your money for Tommy. Then you leave. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. He turned his back to her. I trusted you. I let you into my life, into the parts of me I never show anyone. And you repaid that by stealing from me. I was protecting my son. You were protecting yourself. He spun back, and the fury in his eyes was terrifying. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. You didn't believe I'd help you. Instead, you went behind my back and proved that everything Bradley said about this marriage was right. It's a fraud. We're a fraud. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? I was starting to care about you. I was starting to imagine that maybe, just maybe, this could become something real. How's that for fair? The admission hung between them like shattered glass. Isabella's tears finally spilled over. I care about you too. That's why this is killing me. If you cared, you would have trusted me. And if you cared, you'd understand why I was desperate enough to do something stupid. They stared at each other across the office. Two people who'd gotten too close to the fire, and now stood in the ashes. I want you gone by tonight, Damen said finally, his voice empty. Mrs. Patterson will help you pack. He walked out, leaving Isabella alone in his office, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal. She sank into his chair and buried her face in her hands. The worst part wasn't losing the house or the money or even the marriage. The worst part was seeing the look in Damen's eyes when he realized she'd chosen fear over faith. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the blackmailer. Payment received. Pleasure doing business. BTW. Your husband is meeting with his lawyer right now. Bet he's filing for divorce. Hope your kid was worth it. White-hot rage replaced Isabella's grief. She'd been played. Used. Manipulated into destroying the one good thing in her miserable life. She scrolled back through the messages, looking for any clue about who was behind this. Then she saw it, a phone number partially visible in one screenshot, sent accidentally weeks ago. Isabella ran a reverse lookup. The number traced back to a corporate account registered to Blackwood Industries. Bradley. Of course. He'd been blackmailing them both, playing them against each other, waiting for them to self-destruct so he could swoop in and claim Damen's empire. Isabella grabbed her keys and ran. She found Bradley at his downtown office, feet up on his desk, celebrating with expensive scotch. Well, he drawled when she burst in. The little thief. Come to confess? It was you. The blackmail. The threats. All of it. Bradley smiled. Took you long enough to figure out. And now Damen thinks you betrayed him. Which, technically, you did. You manipulated me. I gave you a choice. You chose to steal. That's on you, sweetheart. Isabella's hands clenched into fists. Why? What did I ever do to you? You married my cousin. You became the thing standing between me and billions of dollars. So I made you the weapon to destroy him. He poured more scotch. And you performed beautifully. I'll tell him. I'll tell him everything. Go ahead. He'll never believe you. You're the woman who stole from him. I'm family. Bradley was right. Damen would never trust her again. She'd burned that bridge with her own hands. Unless... Isabella pulled out her phone and started recording. Tell me again, she said. About how you blackmailed me. Bradley's smile faltered. Put that away. Tell me how you manipulated both of us. How you wanted Damen's company. Say it. You're insane. Say it, or I'm going to the police right now and telling them everything, including the offshore accounts you use for the wire transfers. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your illegal activities. Bradley's face darkened. You have no proof. I have the messages, the transfer records, the timestamps, and now I have this recording of you admitting you set me up. She was bluffing. The recording wasn't admissible without his consent. But Bradley didn't know that. He lunged for her phone. Isabella ran. She made it to the elevator, but Bradley caught her wrist, twisting hard enough to make her cry out. The phone clattered to the floor. "You stupid girl," he hissed. "You really think you can threaten me?" "Let go of her." Damen stood in the hallway, his expression murderous. Bradley released Isabella instantly. "Cousin, what a surprise." "I heard everything." Damen held up his own phone, recording. "The blackmail. The manipulation. All of it. You're bluffing, am I?" Damen played back the audio, Bradley's voice confessing to orchestrating Isabella's betrayal. "I had my security team track the blackmail messages after Isabella told me. They led right back to your corporate accounts. I came here to confirm. Isabella just saved me the trouble." Bradley's face went white. "You can't prove anything. I can prove enough to destroy you. The board, the police, the press. Take your pick." Damen stepped closer. "You're done, Bradley. Turn yourself in, or I bury you." Bradley looked between them, trapped. Then he shoved past Damen and ran for the stairs. "Let him go," Isabella said quietly. "He's already destroyed himself." Damen turned to her, and the anger in his eyes had dimmed to something sadder. "You should have told me." "I know. I would have helped you. I know that now." They stood in the empty hallway, two broken people who'd almost found each other before everything fell apart. "The surgery is still on," Damen said. "I meant what I said. Tommy gets his chance, and us?" Damen's expression was unreadable. "There is no us, Isabella. You made sure of that." He walked away, and Isabella watched him go, her heart breaking with every step. That night, she packed her things at the mansion. Mrs. Patterson cried. Tommy's room, prepared but never used, stood empty and accusing. As Isabella loaded her car, she found an envelope on the driver's seat. Inside was a check for $2 million and a note in Damen's handwriting. "For Tommy's surgery and your future. You deserve better than what I could give you. I hope you find it." Isabella sat in her car and sobbed until she had nothing left. The truth sets them free 3 months later. Tommy's laughter filled the small garden behind their new apartment. Isabella watched him chase butterflies, his cheeks pink with health, his chest rising and falling with the steady rhythm of a heart that finally worked the way it should. The surgery had been a success. Dr. Chen called him her miracle patient. Tommy called himself a superhero with a scar to prove it. But Isabella felt hollow. She'd found work at a non-profit, helping other families navigate medical debt. The irony wasn't lost on her. She spent her days saving people from the desperation that had once consumed her, while at night she lay awake thinking about the man she'd lost. Damen had disappeared from public view after Bradley's arrest. The scandal had rocked Blackwood Industries, but Damen had emerged stronger, his leadership unquestioned. The board had rallied behind him. The marriage requirement from his grandfather's will had been quietly waived in light of the criminal conspiracy. He didn't need her anymore. Had never really needed her. Except maybe he had, in ways neither of them had wanted to admit. Isabella hadn't heard from him since that check. No calls, no texts, nothing. She told herself it was better this way. Clean breaks hurt less in the long run, she was lying to herself. Again. "Mommy, look." Tommy held up a bright blue butterfly that had landed on his finger. "He likes me," Isabella smiled. "He has good taste." The butterfly flew away, and Tommy chased after it, his laughter floating on the afternoon breeze. Isabella's phone rang. Unknown number. Her hand shook as she answered, old fears rising. "Hello? Mrs. Blackwood?" A woman's voice, professional and warm. "This is Sarah Mitchell. We met briefly once. I was engaged to Damen's late fiancé's sister." Isabella's throat tightened. "I remember. What can I do for you?" "I need to speak with you, in person. It's about Damen." They met at a quiet cafe near the waterfront. Sarah was younger than Isabella expected, with kind eyes and an air of someone who'd been through fire and survived. "Thank you for meeting me," Sarah said, stirring her coffee nervously. "I know this is strange. Is Damen okay?" "Physically, yes. Emotionally?" Sarah's expression was troubled. He's drowning, and it's partially my fault. Isabella waited, her heart pounding. After Emily died, I blamed Damen, Sarah continued. I said terrible things to him. Told him it was his fault she was rushing that night. I was grief-stricken and angry, and I took it out on the one person who loved her as much as I did. Why are you telling me this? Because Damen has been helping me for years. Financially, emotionally. He pays for my kids' school. He makes sure we have everything we need. And he never once asked me to stop blaming him. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I realized recently that I'd turned him into a ghost. Someone so consumed by guilt that he couldn't let himself be happy. Sarah. But then he met you. And for the first time in 5 years, he called me and talked about the future, instead of the past. He told me about your son, about how you'd do anything to save him, about how you made him remember what it felt like to care about someone. Sarah reached across the table and took Isabella's hand. You brought him back to life. Isabella's vision blurred. I also betrayed him. He told me. He also told me you were being blackmailed by Bradley, that you were trying to protect your son and him, even if you went about it the wrong way. He said that. He's heartbroken, Isabella. Not because of the money, because he thinks you didn't trust him enough to ask for help. Sarah squeezed her hand. But I think you did trust him. I think you were so used to fighting alone that you forgot you didn't have to. The words cracked something open inside Isabella's chest. It's too late. He told me to leave. He wants nothing to do with me. Does he? Or is he just as scared as you are? Isabella pulled her hand away, wiping her eyes. What do you want from me, Sarah? I want you to fight for him, the way he's been fighting for everyone else his entire life. I want you to show him that broken things can be fixed if you're brave enough to try. He'll never forgive me. Have you asked him to? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Isabella thought about Damen standing in that office, his eyes full of hurt and betrayal. She thought about all the times he'd been kind when he could have been cold, generous when he could have been cruel. She thought about the way he'd held her hand in the hospital, the way he'd looked at her on that balcony, the way he'd whispered that he was starting to forget it was fake. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time to stop running from the things that scared her most. Where is he? Isabella asked. Sarah smiled. I was hoping you'd ask. The Blackwood estate looked different in the fading afternoon light. Less like a fortress, more like a home waiting for someone to breathe life back into it. Isabella stood at the front door, Tommy's hand in hers. Her son had insisted on coming, declaring that Mr. Blackwood needed to see how well the surgery had worked. Mrs. Patterson answered, her face lighting up when she saw them. Oh, my dear girl, she said, pulling Isabella into a hug. It's about time. Is he here? In the library, where he's been every day since you left, staring at nothing and pretending he's working. Isabella knelt beside Tommy. Wait here with Mrs. Patterson, okay? I need to talk to someone. Is it the sad man? What sad man? The one you cry about at night when you think I'm sleeping? Children saw too much. Yeah, baby, the sad man. Tell him I said thank you for fixing my heart. Isabella's eyes burned. I will. She found Damen exactly where Mrs. Patterson said he'd be, sitting in the library with papers spread around him that he clearly wasn't reading. He looked thinner, tired, the shadows under his eyes speaking of sleepless nights. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Isabella, he finally said, his voice carefully neutral. Is Tommy okay? He's perfect. The surgery was a complete success. Good. I'm glad. The polite distance between them felt like knives. I came to apologize, Isabella said, stepping into the room. Not because I think it'll change anything, but because you deserve to hear it. Damen set down his pen. You don't need to. Yes, I do. You were right about everything. I should have trusted you. I should have come to you the moment Bradley started blackmailing me. Instead, I made the worst possible choice because I was terrified of losing the one chance I had to save my son. I understand why you did it. Do you? Because I'm not sure I do. Isabella moved closer, her heart hammering. I spent so long fighting alone that I forgot how to let someone help me. I forgot how to trust that someone might actually care enough to stand beside me instead of using me. I wasn't using you. I know. But I was so convinced that everyone eventually leaves, everyone eventually hurts you, that I hurt you first. Before you could hurt me, Damen stood slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. You think I was going to hurt you? I think I was falling in love with you, and that terrified me more than anything Bradley could have threatened. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Damen's expression cracked. Isabella, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to take me back or give me another chance. I just needed you to know that you weren't alone in forgetting it was fake. I forgot too, and that scared me so much I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Silence filled the library. Then Damen crossed the space between them in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. You infuriating, impossible woman, he murmured against her hair. I've been miserable for 3 months. Isabella buried her face in his chest, breathing in the scent of him. So have I. I was so angry. Not about the money, about the fact that you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. I know, and you had every right to be. He pulled back enough to look at her face, his hands cradling her cheeks. But I wasn't fair either. I demanded trust from you when I'd spent 5 years refusing to trust anyone. I expected you to be vulnerable with me while I kept walls around my own heart. Damen, let me finish. After you left, Sarah came to see me. She told me she'd been wrong about Emily's death. That it wasn't my fault. That Emily would have hated seeing me punish myself for 5 years. His voice broke, and she told me that you'd given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Isabella's tears spilled over. I'm so sorry. For everything. I'm sorry too. For pushing you away when you needed me most. For making you feel like you had to handle everything alone. They stood there, holding each other. 2 broken people who'd found a way to fit their jagged pieces together. I meant what I said, Isabella whispered. I was falling in love with you. I think I still am. Damen's smile was soft and real. Past tense isn't necessary. I fell in love with you months ago. Probably the moment you stood in my study and offered to marry me to save your son. You were the bravest thing I'd ever seen. I was desperate. You were magnificent. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the cold, perfunctory kiss at City Hall. This was heat and promise, and all the feelings they'd been too scared to name. When they finally pulled apart, Isabella was breathless. So what happens now? She asked. Now? Damen smiled. Now we do this right. No contracts. No deadlines. Just us, figuring out how to build something real from the ashes of something fake. I'd like that. There's someone waiting to see you. Mrs. Patterson's voice came from the doorway, gentle and knowing. Tommy burst into the library, his face lit with joy. Mr. Blackwood, look! He lifted his shirt to show the scar from his surgery. I'm all fixed! Damen knelt down to Tommy's level, his expression tender. That's quite a scar. Very heroic. Mommy says heroes get scars from saving people. Did you save people too? Damen glanced up at Isabella, and the love in his eyes made her heart ache in the best way. Actually, I think your mom saved me. Tommy considered this seriously. That makes sense. Mommy saves everyone. Over the next year, they rebuilt everything. Damen and Isabella dated properly. Dinners, movies, long walks along the waterfront. They fought and made up and learned how to trust when trust felt impossible. Tommy thrived, gaining weight and energy, becoming the loud, joyful child he was always meant to be. Sarah became Isabella's friend, bonding over their shared love for a man who'd spent too long punishing himself for crimes he didn't commit. Bradley served 3 years for extortion and fraud. Damen never spoke of him again. And on a spring morning exactly 2 years after their fake wedding, Damen and Isabella stood in a small garden behind the Blackwood estate and married for real. No contracts, no deadlines, just promises made with full hearts and clear eyes. Tommy was the ring bearer, proudly declaring to anyone who'd listen that he'd known from the start they belonged together. As Isabella said "I do" for the 2nd time, she thought about the desperate woman who'd stood in Damen's study and offered to marry a stranger. She thought about all the ways they'd hurt each other and healed each other. She thought about the difference between surviving and living. I love you, Damen whispered, as they were pronounced husband and wife. For real this time. It was always real, Isabella whispered back. We just had to learn how to see it. Their kiss tasted like second chances, and earn trust and all the beautiful complexity of loving someone broken and being loved despite your own fractures. Later, as the sun set over San Francisco Bay, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Isabella stood on the terrace with Tommy asleep in her arms and Damen's hand warm in hers. "Happy?" he asked softly. She looked at her son, healthy and whole. She looked at the man beside her, his eyes clear and his smile genuine. She looked at the life they'd built from desperation and deception and somehow turned into something true. "Yeah," she said, "I'm happy." Some love stories begin with grand gestures and perfect timing. Some begin with desperate choices and impossible circumstances. But the best ones, the ones that last, begin with two people brave enough to trust that broken things can be mended if you're willing to do the work. Damen, Isabella, and Tommy had done the work. And on the other side of fear and betrayal and all the ways they'd almost destroyed each other, they found something neither of them had believed possible. A family built not on obligation or contracts, but on choice. The daily choice to love, to trust, to forgive, to stay. And that choice, made over and over again, was the greatest contract of all. The end.